Okay, so you're buying a property and you're thinking about interest and you're thinking, you know what, that's what I've got a budget for. There's over 20 things in the course of a year you do have to budget for. We're going to run through them for you this morning. Stay tuned.
Good morning.
Hey, what's with the stale bread behind your head?
I'm not that tech savvy. So what remains today, it's meant to symbolize something.
That was properties going stale.
Yeah.
So that's why that was up, but you're not tech savvy enough to move it around, so I'm sorry.
We thought we'd leave it. It's so good, leave it there.
It looks hot. It looks hot. Now, Lisa Novak's going to love this topic because she said we've been talking too much about figures.
I don't think
so. But this isn't about figures.
No.
This isn't about figures. What's it about?
This is about being able to hold on to your dream. So this is about someone who wants to buy a property, someone who's either looking for an owner-occupier, looking for an investment and going, hey, what does it actually entail? What is it really going to cost me year in, year out to be able to hold on to this property? So maybe there are a little bit of figures, but the crux of it is it allows you to hold on to your home.
And ladies and gentlemen, Michael SILJIC, sales extraordinaire at Novak. He's not going to tell you this, but I will. Michael's actually really good at habits. And he's really good, and at a very young age, bought properties, I'm saying that's plural. And this is a guy that's nice and equipped to talk to people. And I guess this is aimed at people in their twenties and 30s.
I lost you there for a second, Mark. Mark's going through a little bit of turbulence.
I think you probably formed your patterns.
Mark, I'm going to get you to repeat that very shortly. You've gone through a little bit of turbulence.
About buy sort of and what it considers to you, Michael.
I'm going to get you to repeat that last little bit, Mark, because you went through a little bit of turbulence there. You were talking about habits there. We went through a little bit of turbulence. We lost you for a little bit. I picked up some of the bits you're saying. It's targeted people in their 20s and 30s building habits. So, guys, whilst Mark is reconnecting, there we go. We've got you back.
Yep.
So I think what I heard there was Mark was talking about targeted people, 20s and 30s, building those habits. And I think it's a really big thing for, like, I know for myself, when I thought in terms of buying my first property, I went, okay, I've got a budget for my mortgage repayments. I've got a budget for this, for that. But to be honest with you, I didn't really know, and I thought I knew, but I didn't really know everything it was going to entail in terms of home ownership until you've really owned the property and you've seen every cost that you're expecting to come through over the year and all those hidden costs as well. And it's something that you don't truly know until you experience it or it gets laid out for you.
But who's going to teach you? And I agree. I think this is probably a great session that people that are juggling around money at the moment, for people to go through, and we're going to go through all the birds and the bees of property ownership. But there's not really any formal education you can get around. How am I going to keep this property, or how am I going to sustain this property?
No, like you could go find like a short course or something, or most of the time most people get their information from someone that's older in their life that already owns a property, and they're stuck with as good or as bad as that information may be. Or even worse, if you get your advice maybe from someone that doesn't own a property and then they tell you this is what it should be. So I think there's a bit of an array of advice out there, and some of it's probably great, and I think a lot of it's not so great as well.
Let's get into it.
All right. So buying a property, biggest thing first on the list is your mortgage repayments, your interest you're paying on a property. And guys, bear with us. I will go through a couple of numbers because I think it's just interesting for someone that's going, well, how much I really got a budget towards it? And you can obviously break it down for your own situation as well. But you run off an example today, Mark, of buying $1 million unit, just to make it really simple, nice round numbers. So you want to go buy $1 million unit. We're talking about today, guys, the running costs of a property, not necessarily what you need to save up. Let's say you've got a 10% deposit and you're going to be borrowing 90% of that property. You're going to borrow $900,000 from the bank. So you're talking about at today's interest rates, I'm just going to use round numbers once again, circa 5%. You're going to be paying $45,000 a year just on the interest portion of your loan. So that's not including the principal part. If you pay P&I, it'll be a little bit more as well. That's number one off the list. Then we've got some of the on costs.
That's the obvious one. And I do have to say, and I had a chat about, I was talking with Lisa about it this morning. We're having a cup of coffee, and I was saying people that have 2 or 3 cup of coffees a day and are paying for those 2 or 3 cup of coffees, you can be talking $5,000 a year on this sort of stuff. So things that I want people to watch out for today that are watching the show when they're talking about property ownership, I want you to watch out for the stuff that's repetitious, because it's like soap. You don't use much, but you sort of at the end of the whatever, you've used it all, and you're like, where did that all go? Or the toothpaste, right? You know, it just goes. So these are costs that we're going to these are things or patterns that we're going to talk about with property ownership, where money just disappears or appears depending on how good you are with it.
Correct. So the next part of it is your on cost, and these are things that you can't get away from. What is it costing? That's true, Luke. So what we've got next is let's say for a unit here, you've got your ongoing. So strata, council, water. So they're 3 big things, irregardless of whether it's an investment or owner-occupier you're going to be paying. Now, strata rates, once again, we use nice round numbers. $1,000 a quarter, water, $200 a quarter, council, $350 a quarter. That's about $1,500-ish a quarter. $6,000 a year, so we're already up to 51,000.
Still pretty obvious.
Very obvious. What's something a little bit less obvious? I'm going to start with the obvious, and we're going to move into the more obsolete. What's the next one you ought to say, Mark?
A special strata levy. Special strata levy.
So do you reckon someone's got a budget for that, going once every 5 years or once every X amount of years I might be hit for something?
Nah, you just kick your bitch and moan when it happens.
I think you always got to have a little bit of a reserve there.
Yeah.
Do you mean, like, I'm not saying you got to be budgeting exactly this for it, but just like anything in life, you always want to have a little bit of a cash reserve behind you, because unexpected costs do come up.
Yep.
So you got your
special levies. $1,000 a year.
Could be more, could be less. That's a really hard one to know.
As a rainy day, other costs. Let's go.
Other costs. Next one, we got insurance. So you're an owner occupier. If you're in a unit, you may not have to get building insurance, but you're still going to get your contents insurance. So that could cost you, I'm trying to think what the contents portion of an insurance might be. $1,000, $1,500 a year, something like that. Do
you need insurance? Do you need contents insurance?
You don't. Some people go, it's a raw. Some people
don't you?
I think it's a nice thing to have. It depends how much, obviously, with the value of your contents there. If you're living pretty bare bones, you might not choose to. If you've got some pretty expensive things in your place, you might want to. Not here to sell insurance, but it's that's a thing that a lot of people have.
I think probably theft is an obvious one. One that's not so obvious is if there was, for instance, if there was a water leak in the building, the strata will cover the building side of it, but that content side of it you may struggle with. So I think that's something to keep an eye out on, that maybe you do want to be paying that insurance. What else?
Repairs and maintenance. Properties are always getting older. Doesn't matter if you're buying a brand new property or an older property, they're always going to age.
Do you know what's funny? You never actually budget for it, you just do it.
Correct.
I think kitchens, bathrooms, stuff just stops working in your apartment. I don't think if you ask anyone what they spent in the last 5 years, I don't think anyone would be able to tell you what their repairs and maintenance is, but it
No.
wouldn't be a small figure.
No, you're not budgeting for it. And I'm not saying today what we're going through is everything you have to be this absolute figures person, write down on a list, absolutely everything you need to be ready, and you need to budget in, day out. Like Mark said, you're probably going to be budgeting it in without even realizing anyway. But these are the true costs that are coming out of it. And bear in mind, guys, these are all what we're focusing on today, because we focused on the big picture in the past and obviously property going up in value and so forth. Today, we're just really trying to knuckle down on these you're running on costs. Not good, not bad, just, hey, this is exactly what to expect is going to be coming up. So repairs and maintenance, look, that could be anywhere from a couple $100 a year if you're lucky and there's not much going on, to thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah. Shower heads, washers, in your unit, you're changing the washer or fixing plumbing in your unit most of the time can be relying on you replacing a dishwasher, replacing a stove or oven. One tip I have to give people on that is try with white goods, try to replace them rather than fix them. And I think the cost of waiting for the repairman to come over, paying for the repairman to come over, then he has to come back and buy some parts, and then he has to charge a service call. I think these days, just whacking in some new white goods, if they're older than 10 years, just whack a new stove or new oven. You can get stoves and ovens from a couple $100. Super important.
Yeah, I agree. And then after that, I guess it's more for the owner-occupier side, but then you've got your electricity, you've got your internet as well. Correct, Luke. Then you got like your electricity and internet as well, and this is more for owner-occupiers. For an investor, you wouldn't have to pay for that. But electricity could be anywhere from, let's say, $500 a quarter for a unit, and then your internet $100 a month. So guys, these are all just costs that, and I just know for me, when you actually go through and you itemize them, it's a lot more than what you originally expect it to be. Like I said at the beginning, you just think it's going to be a $900,000 mortgage, $45,000 a year. Okay, let's just add $10,000 a year for on costs, and that's about it. It really ends up being a bit more than that. And look, there's no free lunch. You want to go and rent a property, you're going to have to spend a lot of money on some of this stuff anyway. Some of it you don't have to, but the difference is when you're renting a property, you're owning the asset that's going up in value. So I'm not saying one's better over the other, but it's just really good to be aware of it, because I know when I went through it, I was like, ooh, these costs are a bit more than I was expecting for. And like you said, Mark, you don't budget for it, but you whinge and you moan and you work through it.
Money Magazine on about January or February every year does a brilliant edition that comes out. I think it's Money Magazine's either a weekly or a monthly edition, but they do so they do an awards system, and I really recommend that people actually pick up one of these. It's got gold all over the cover. It says, it'll say 2023 awards. I really recommend picking up this magazine. If it's the best tip I could give out of today, they have ranked the best of the best insurance. They have ranked the best of the best internet providers. They have ranked a lot of these costs that we're talking about today. They've actually tested, ranked, and costed all of these guys and awarded number one. I really recommend that people, because these costs, and when we started off, I started talking about habits and patterns, and these forcing yourself into good habits and patterns will self-perpetuate over the next year, 2 or 3. You can literally forget about your internet connection for 3 years once you get it right, and it can be costing you a lot of money in that first, second, or third year. Could be going up. So when it comes to these costs, and something that I've noticed about you, Michael, that you're very good at, is you're good at managing those things. So I'd urge everyone to get their hands on that Money Magazine, the awards for, it'll be 2023, some sort of gold awards that they do. I've tried to buy it online. I've tried to cheat and see if they've printed it on the web, and they never do. And I get a hold of that magazine, and there's always really good stuff in there. Even to best mortgages, even to depositing your money. If cash investments, there's probably about 50 to 100 categories they've gone through. Get it?
It's brilliant. And that's it. You made a very good point there. Making it autonomous. It's not something that you need to let take up all day. Like, we're focusing on it today, but you should not having to be focusing on all these costs all day, every day, stressing about all this money that's going out. It's about understanding it, putting some great systems in place. So that way you go, you know what? I'm set for the year. Apart from maybe if something comes up that's maybe an issue, outside of that, it just runs smoothly. I don't need to think about it. I've got my money budgeted away. It goes out, does what it needs to do. And you don't have to be a genius with it. So exactly like Mark said there, those things that Money Magazine, all these providers they got there, you don't need to get the best of the best of the best of the best and research to every tiny little bit exactly what each provider provides. If you can get it right, or get it mainly right for most of those providers, and someone else has come recommended and they do most of the stuff you need anyway, that's great. It's only just don't want to get it really wrong, because that's when it hurts. But the difference between spending 20 minutes researching to 5 hours, you don't need to.
I was with a person that was didn't have to worry about money, and I mean didn't have to worry about money. And I was sitting opposite him having a chat, and he said, you know, I had 1,000 up, 1,000 down internet. It was costing me 140 or 140 a month. And I said, yeah. And he goes, and he's a geek. He loves anything fast, anything internet, whatever. Yeah. I go, yeah. And he said, I don't use it. He's got 3 kids. Yeah. Wife at home. And he said, I can't possibly use that quicker internet. He goes, no use. He goes, 100 down, 40 up. I think it was Telstra connection. He goes, it was $68. Was $68. He said, look, and this is someone that can actually doesn't worry for money. But my point is that if you can actually look at those things, and want and need are 2 different things. Now he's fixed this internet connection at $80 less over 12 months. There's a good $1,000 that's sitting there. $1,000.
Yeah. It's not the nominal money itself. It's that mindset. I think that's the key with it, because you have that and it carries across to other stuff as well. And that's probably one of the many reasons why he's in the position that he's in.
Becoming Warren Buffett, if anyone gets to watch that movie, he talks about the law of compounding, and that's exactly what I think is the most important thing from what we've talked about today. These costs of property ownership, get them right and review them annually, because they compound. They compound to huge amounts of money.
Correct. You can put your money elsewhere. And this became very holistic. It was starting off as just a couple of costs, and it just grew from there. Hopefully it's been a bit the reason why we mentioned at the beginning, this was from a previous segment with the moldy toast. And as great as I'm in some things, I'm not as great in other things, and I wasn't as good enough to be able to change the background.
But a great way to learn, Michael. I think in future that if there's a background there, we're gonna work out how to do that real quick in future.
I think so. Exactly. We all got room for growth.
We did actually say to each other we should have started a couple of minutes earlier so we could have worked this out. But anyway.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, Mark. I hope that's been informative today, guys.
There's some good nuggets in there. I hope you enjoyed them.
Think so. Thanks.
See you guys. Take care.